First Vice President of the Collectivité addresses the celebration of Treaty of Concordia's anniversary. Member of Parliament Claudius Moncamper questions the Prime Minister's statement. But first up, Prime Minister says she has requested military assistance and it is being handled. Those are the headlines for Monday, March the 23rd, 2020. This is SXM Daily News. I'm Valerie Van Putten. Now for the details. Prime Minister Sylvia Jacobs, in her national address on Sunday, March 22, 2020, she stated that she held an ES5 strategic meeting which included the police. A request for the National Guard and military assistance was also submitted, and it is now being handled. The Prime Minister also gave an update about the business closures.
A strategic meeting held with ESF5, including police and immigration. The official request was sent to His Excellency Governor E.B. Holliday for military assistance in advance of an outbreak. This request is being handled via the usual channels. Today, Sunday, March 22, 2020, in another strategic meeting held with ESF5 and ESF10, Ministry of TIAT, related to business closures, it has been decided that business closures as of Monday, March 23, 2020, businesses may remain open until 6 p.m. from Monday through Saturday. The following services are the grocery stores, pharmacies, gas stations, banks, emergency and paramedic services, hotels, restaurants, essential government services, including telecommunication and postal services, judicial services and utilities, public transportation operators, hardware stores, shipping and cargo companies. This is as long as each continues to ensure proper provisioning for social distancing of 1 to 2 meters and maximum large groupings of no more than 20 persons. If the social distancing and grouping of no more than 20 persons are not adhered to, then the establishment or institution will be shut down by the authorities with immediate effect. On a positive note, Police Chief Carl John has commended all business owners on St. Martin for their compliance in adhering to the closure time of 8 p.m., which started last night, and looks forward to the same compliant behavior as new closure times go into effect Monday, March 23rd. On Sundays, for the next 2 weeks, besides emergency services, only gas stations, pharmacies, and hotel with attached amenities for guests only will be allowed to open until 6 p.m. Also allowed is, of course, the newspaper to be able to prepare and other necessary emergency services. As related to the aforementioned restrictions for businesses, I wish to add, no beach vending will be allowed until further notice. No beach parties are allowed. No groups of more than 5 persons are allowed on the beach. Social distancing for those persons who wish to visit the beach must be the recommended 1 to 2 meters. If this is not adhered to, you will be asked to leave the beach. If this continues, this particular stress reliever will also be totally curtailed.
Prime Minister Jacobs also gave an update about the coronavirus COVID-19 case. According to the Prime Minister, to date there are 13 people being monitored, and there is one other case, that of a student that returned home and is now in self-isolation.
I now wish to give you the latest COVID-19 case update for St. Martin. Since my last address on Friday, March 20th, 2020, CPS has noted a spike in calls to 914 for persons wishing to register as having traveled home in the past week, and they are currently being monitored. I would like to thank all persons who have heeded the call of the Prime Minister to do so. Also, as CPS had medical personnel present at the airport on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, collecting the forms filled in by returning residents, we expect that number to go up. which will allow us to monitor all returning residents over the past few days. All persons who have returned to the island since Friday, March 13th are requested to register with CPS by calling 914 or downloading the document provided for such on government's website page /coronavirus, fill it in and email to CPS. As of today, I can update that there are currently 13 persons who are in self-isolation and are being monitored as having been exposed to persons who have COVID-19. This is, as I mentioned in my last address, the first confirmed person on Dutch St. Martin, as well as one of the confirmed persons on French St. Martin, whom were closely related to 3 persons on the Dutch side. As of today, we can also confirm that we have now 2 cases. The second case is a student who returned to St. Martin a week ago and immediately went into self-isolation. There is no chance for local transmission at this time. He continues to be monitored and has 1 more week of isolation left. Of the 13 persons being monitored, 10 have been deemed negative and 1 is still pending. So we have now 2 cases positive, 10 negative, and 1 pending. And as I mentioned before, the others who have registered with CPS over the past few days are now being monitored, and if they exhibit symptoms, will be tested as well.
And as we turn to these 2 stories from the police blotter, the Special Unit Robbery is investigating an armed robbery that took place at the Chinese supermarket on the WJA Nisbet Road, former Van Dorpedien bookstore, at approximately 6:30 p.m. on Saturday, March 21st, 2020. On the scene, the police patrol learned that 2 men, all dressed in black, stormed into the establishment wearing face masks. One of the suspects was armed with a firearm. One of the other robbers went behind the counter and removed cash from the register, while the other suspect threatened the cashier inside with a firearm. After robbing the supermarket, the 2 suspects fled on a scooter in an unknown direction. The detectives investigating this armed robbery case is asking anyone who has information to please contact the St. Martin Police Force at +1 721 542 2222 extension 204 or 205, or the anonymous tip line on 9300. You can also visit the police website at www.policesxm.sx or leave a message via the Facebook page, Police Force of St. Martin, Corps Politie St. Martin. The patrol and ambulance department were also sent to the Welfare Road on the crossing with Billy Folly Road on Sunday afternoon, March 22nd, 2020, at approximately 2 p.m., where a male victim had succumbed to injuries after being shot. In front of a well-known supermarket on the Welfare Road, the police patrol and the personnel of the ambulance department encountered a male victim who had sustained a gunshot wound to his upper body. Shortly after, the paramedics arrived on the scene and started administering cardiopulmonary resuscitation, CPR. However, they could not revive the victim. According to the information gathered at the scene, the victim was sitting on his scooter in front of the supermarket. He was approached by an unknown man who was brandishing a firearm and requested him to hand over his scooter. The suspect, who was dressed in shorts, slippers on his feet, and had bandana over his face, tried to rob the victim of his scooter in the parking lot of the supermarket. During this robbery, the victim sustained a gunshot wound to his upper body. After injuring the victim, the robber fled with the scooter in the direction of Simpson Bay. The doctor, who appeared sometime later, stated that the victim had died from the gunshot wound that he received. And still to come, President of Parliament says St. Martin will be receiving aid. We'll have the details to that story and more when SXM Daily News returns.
GEBE has been faithfully serving the communities of St. Martin, powering your home and our economy. Come rain or shine, our qualified team of professionals are working hard 24 hours a day to provide you and your family with safe, reliable electricity and water. We use the latest technologies and test our products daily to maintain the highest international standards. Our friendly staff is always there to assist you, whether in person, over the phone, or online. We are committed to constantly improving our products and services, making them more efficient, effective, and environmentally friendly to serve you better today and our next generation of clients tomorrow. GEBE, powering a brighter future.
Our friend Megawati is here with tips to save you energy. 1. Turn your airco temperature up. 2. Use a ceiling fan instead. 3. Buy energy-saving products. Save some green with NVGEBE.
And as we continue with the news at this time, President of Parliament Rolando Bryson, in his live stream on Facebook, spoke about the outbreak of the COVID-19. He also commended the Prime Minister on the work being done. He announced that St. Martin will be receiving aid from the Netherlands.
As you know, St. Martin is in a very, just like the rest of the world, in a very precarious time in our history where we have to really take very seriously what we're dealing with right now, which is the possible outbreak of the coronavirus in St. Martin, just as it is across the world. I believe that I first of all really have to commend the Prime Minister. It is, of course, primarily from an execution perspective, the role of the government to handle the day-to-day decisions that regard the virus. And I believe, in my opinion, while, of course, in any disaster, it is never perfect, I believe that we've seen quite a lot of good initiatives from the government in order to try to curb this as much as possible. And every day we're learning more and more measures that are being taken. I've come to understand that there'll be another public statement from the Prime Minister today with some more details that I know all of you are going to want to know in terms of measures that are going to be taken. However, the parliaments of Curaçao, Aruba, and St. Martin and the Netherlands had a very fruitful teleconference to make it very clear as kingdom partners that the situation of the coronavirus is, from a legal and legislative perspective, I know a lot of people maybe don't really care to hear about this, but we do have to operate within the framework of the law. And in the framework of the law, this is really considered a koninkrijk-gelegenheid. In other words, it is something that is affecting the entire kingdom, and it's going to take, on a kingdom level, some very strong decisions to be made to protect our people, your health, society, your financial future, and so on. I think many have seen today the announcement from, and I think probably a bit as a result of that tripartite or that IPCO meeting, so to speak, we saw then that the Minister of BZK has announced that there will be aid coming for St. Martin. Let me say very clearly to those that wonder, are we begging Holland for money and so on? It is not a matter of that. It is a matter that within our constitution, within the statute of the kingdom, it is the way that such aid is managed. We actually legally can't go knocking on the door of China, for example, and say, hey, I want $1 billion, help us now. That is just not the legal way it works. But I must say that the discussions are fruitful. There are some aid packages coming. I want to make it very clear. St. Martin is not just going to sit back and not realize that we're going to need some financial support to the economy. It's going to come both from our local initiatives, but also from a kingdom initiative as well.
And in other news at this time, at the continuation of the plenary public session of Parliament about the national ordinance establishing a new code of criminal procedure, which was held in the General Assembly chamber of the House of Parliament, Minister of Justice Egbert Doran, while on the floor, responded to questions from his colleagues in Parliament. The minister was asked about what guarantees could the government give with regards to the measures that are about to be taken, and if he could guarantee that it will not further worsen the situation in the local banking system. The minister replied, "None whatsoever." He elaborated.
What kind of guarantees can the government give Parliament that the measures we are about to take will not further worsen the situation in the local banking system? None whatsoever. The government of St. Martin can only do its best to live up to international obligations as has committed to honor, like the FATF recommendations. These recommendations are aimed at ensuring the integrity of the financial system. As long as the CFATF public statement that was issued against St. Martin last November is in place, foreign financial institutions may apply enhanced due diligence measures to business relationships and transactions with unnatural and legal persons and the financial institutions of St. Martin. These measures will hinder the natural and legal persons in their day-to-day business and financial transactions, or even make it impossible to do any of these transactions, and therefore seriously damage the economy. Has the government made any cost-benefit analysis study of the regulatory burden that all these measures will impose on the financial and judicial apparatus? If yes, please present me with that report. The government has made basic calculations of the financial consequences for country St. Martin of implementing the FATF recommendations. It is a national legislation that refers to the financial paragraph in the explanatory memorandum of the draft Penal Procedure Code and of the other legislation in the CFATF recommendations that are implemented. If yes, what was denied? Oh no, I skipped this question. Was the Bob Law ever submitted to the CFATF, which, correct me if I'm wrong, covers the recommendations 4, 30, and 31? If yes, was it denied, approved? What was their feedback? If no, explain to me why it was not relevant for the CFATF. Yes, indirectly, the Bob Law is a national decree of 2012 by which the third book of the existing Penal Procedure Code was amended. 5 new titles on special investigative power was added. These titles contain provisions on, amongst others, systematic surveillance, infiltration, purchase of services, systematic gathering of information, recording, confidential communication, and requesting of data. Apparently, the CFATF found the information provided by St. Martin suffice to their satisfaction because the recommendations 4, 30, and 31 are not registered as key core recommendations, which St. Martin have to meet in order to proceed to the 4th round.
And in this item from French St. Martin, as the island commemorated the celebration of the 372nd anniversary of the Concordia Treaty earlier today, March 23, 2020, First Vice President Valerie Damaso said that we must learn to live together like brothers, otherwise we will die together like idiots.
Today, as we celebrate 372 years of the Treaty of Concordia, which was a formal arrangement that was primarily a friendly one, an alliance between two communities which determined the common rules for a joint use of the goods on our island. Thanks to the people, we continue to live in harmony with open free borders. This long-standing division has never impaired the peaceful living of the French and the Dutch communities. We simply continue to be our brother's keeper. Our bond has been put to the test, especially these last 3 years where we constantly face numerous challenges that indirectly brings us to rely on our strength and moral values as a people, with the application of laws which brings out the difficulties of this land that hampers our cross-border relationship. We so often repeat that the gale and plagues do not stop at the border, but let us take a minute and realize how these challenges goes unnoticed in the everyday lives of our people. When reality changes, the ways in which we handle those issues must also change. The uniqueness so rare cannot continue to be governed issue by issue. Rethinking our coexistence is a must. Time is of the essence. We need to reactivate the importance of this day and revive in every one of us a reality that holds within itself the singularity and challenges that we as a people, residents of St. Martin, are confronted with politically, administratively, economically, socially, and culturally every day. As the late Ms. Daniela Jeffrey once said, and I quote, "A unique island requires a unique governance." Our President Daniel Gates clearly agrees, as this majority truly believes that a united Congress, French and Dutch, is a must. On this special day, I acknowledge that yes, we were able to live like this for 372 years. But I also acknowledge that it is time to put in place a wide-based governance that will set a body in charge of the cooperation between Saint-Martin and Saint Martin, that will make possible the joint management and the finding of joint solution to common issues, and seal it with a renewal of the 1648 Treaty of Concordia Agreement, keeping in mind that we are one island, one people.
Now turning to our weather forecast. The weather for March 23, 2020, the atmosphere across the region will remain sufficiently moist and unstable, generating isolated showers during this forecast period. Meanwhile, the Atlantic high pressure ridge will maintain breezy conditions. Seas will remain moderate to rough and peak near 8 feet throughout tonight. Therefore, a small craft advisory remains in effect for St. Martin. Small craft operators and sea bathers are advised to exercise caution. Now let's turn to your 3-day forecast. And still to come, workshop on integrated vector management held recently. I'll have the details to that story and more when SXM Daily News returns.
Make use of WIB mobile banking with easy access and direct usage of face recognition, PIN code, or fingerprint. Download WIB mobile banking app and make your transaction from anywhere at any time. For more information, visit wib-bank.net/quick-login.
And in other news at this time, the Department of Collective Prevention Services, CPS, which falls under the Ministry of Public Health, Social Development and Labor, Ministry VSA, hosted a workshop on implementation and monitoring of integrated vector management strategies recently. Dr. Laura Lee Budram, head of Vector-Borne Disease, and Mr. Raj Raghu, technical officer of Vector-Borne Disease Unit out of Trinidad of the Caribbean Public Health Agency, CARFA, conducted the workshop, which took place at the Government Administration Building. CARFA, in collaboration with the European Union, EU, provided funding for the workshop. The objectives for the workshop were to assess the existing or potential entomology laboratory in St. Martin, train vector control personnel in entomological laboratory techniques associated with the collection and data management of Aedes aegypti mosquito, and to develop and implement feedback mechanisms for entomological indices and vector control field operation. The expectation is that after the workshop, vector control operations on St. Martin will be adjusted and implemented accordingly based on the integrated vector management strategy. The workshop was attended with participants from various government departments such as the Department of Infrastructure Management, Minister of Romy, Social Development, Family and Humanitarian Affairs, Public Health, the Department of Education, the external partners such as St. Martin Medical Center, SMMC, and the Public Health Departments of Curaçao and St. Eustatius. And Member of Parliament Claudius Moncamper, in responding to the Prime Minister's statement in her national address over the weekend about people going to the beach for recreation, the Member of Parliament queried whether it was a good idea to encourage gatherings during these times. We should be taking precautionary measures. We must adhere to social distancing, the Member of Parliament said during his live stream on Facebook.
I want to be cautious with a statement that was made by the Prime Minister when she said that people should go to the beach as a way of recreation. And I don't want that to be taken out of the context that people believe you can go and have a beach party on the beach. During the social distancing, then we have a serious problem. Because then all of this is in vain. We got to be careful to understand that we must adhere to social distancing. We must adhere. That's the one thing that's going to help us. We need to commend the health workers in this country that day and night are out there putting their lives on the line, trying to save ours. The White and Yellow Cross is going out there helping all the elderly. There are other organizations that are out there trying to bring food to those that are enclosed and can't get out. And I am truly, truly proud of all of you. As a parliamentarian, my job is a little different. My job is to be able to legislate and look that government carries out their task the right way. And it is in that last part that I have decided to do a live stream, because I am convinced that the EOC is doing the utmost, and I commend them for that, putting in a lot of hours. But this is bigger than EOC. This is bigger than the government. This is the country. I think we all have to share. And I agree that businesses at this point in time, instead of laying, if you have paid vacation, take the paid vacation so that at least the businesses too have a chance of survival, because it is not as simple as we all want to believe. I don't believe that the crisis has really started. We are taking precautionary measures, but the crisis didn't really start yet. And I want people not to panic, but to be well informed of how we deal with this crisis, how we move forward.
And still to come, Prime Minister tours the airport and the port of St. Martin. I'll have the details to that story and more when SXM Daily News returns. And as we continue now with the news, Prime Minister Sylvia Jacobs requested a tour of the Princess Juliana International Airport Terminal building on Friday last with regards to the safety precautions that the airport is undertaking and to see if the protocols are being followed. Social distancing is also an area that the Prime Minister feels needs more attention. The Prime Minister was speaking on the DCOM's Gov Insider program.
To ensure that the protocols that had been described within our EOC meetings are being followed, we're ensuring that all frontliners have the necessary protective equipment, as well as understand how to protect themselves in this crisis time. The airport was not filled with passengers. One thing I see that still needs to be required that more people pay attention to social distancing. So the airport has promised to put up signage as well as make announcements that persons who come to the airport also should maintain a 1 meter distance from the other person or group or family group. This is in order to ensure that persons are maintaining their safety areas. It is for your own as well as other people's protection.
And that does it for this edition of SXM's Daily News. I'm Valerie Van Putten. Just a reminder that this and other programs are available online. Simply log on to stmartinmediacenter.com for viewing. And on behalf of the SXM Daily News team, we thank you for watching and plan on meeting you back here again tomorrow.